Welcome to Exploring Reality Maybe, where we explore the intersection of science, medicine, and mysticism with experts.
Today, we are joined by Dr. Nitin Ron, a neonatologist practicing in the New York, New Jersey area, whose extraordinary journey combines cutting-edge medical science with ancient wisdom practices. Dr. Ron completed his fellowship in newborn medicine at Brown University and has become known for his groundbreaking research on evidence-based mindfulness practices. But his path is far from conventional. He's also a high altitude mountaineer who has lived in caves in the Himalayas, meditating in complete darkness for days at a time, and studied monks who walked barefoot on glaciers in sub-zero temperatures.
In this wide-ranging conversation, we explore the fascinating parallels between high-altitude physiology and fetal development, the neuroscience behind human touch and consciousness, and Dr. Ron's innovative baby cuddler program that demonstrates the measurable healing power of compassion. We discuss his meditation research, including EEG brainwave studies, his experiences with mirror neurons and what he calls neural Wi-Fi, and profound lessons learned from isolation in the Himalayas, and so much more.
Welcome, Dr. Ron. We're fascinated by your extraordinary journey that combines neonatology, high altitude mountaineering, and meditation research. Wow. Let's start at the beginning. You have mentioned both your parents as your greatest aspiration and inspiration. Can you share an early memory of your experience that set you on the path to becoming a neonatologist, and how did your parents influence your approach to medicine?
Yes, definitely. Very happy to share. My dad and mom are my role models in determining what I need to do in life and how I need to do it. Dad is a nuclear scientist. It was his goal to realize that the atom should be used for peace and not for making atomic bombs and taking lives. So he's one of the main scientists to move India away from war and towards peace.
Oh, wow.
And I'm very, very lucky to have a father like that. He also introduced mindfulness and meditation to the scientific community in India over 5 decades ago, even before I was born. And
Oh, my goodness.
and it's interesting because he actually proved that with regular practice of mindfulness and meditation, conflict came down over 60 to 70%, and productivity rose up over 50%. So this was one of the first studies done ever to look at the effect of mindfulness on how we comport ourselves in everyday life. He also he is a great reader, and it's so wonderful to be exposed to books like Autobiography of a Yogi, Philosophy by J. Krishnamurti, by Ramana Maharshi, incredible people. Not that I read all of it when I was a kid. I was a very naughty kid and a relatively shy teenager. Having said that, I think even the presence of these books influences you, a lot. Just these books being present, the energy changes. My mom is a mom. She's a mathematician, and she is also the anchoring force behind keeping all of us together through her love. When I was studying for medical school, she actually stayed home for 3 years so that I could focus on my studies and she could supervise that. So I am eternally grateful to it. There's no way I would have got into med school without my mom's sacrifice. So that's the reason that I'm grateful to both of them. The greatest reason I love babies, I love neonatology, is that babies are strong little things. They look very tiny, they look very delicate. However, even if they're born with no heart rate, not breathing, and you're there, you do the right things, the right resuscitation, within 2 minutes, you have a pink crying baby in front of you. Adults would never do that. They would require chest compressions, they would require an endotracheal tube and still probably lose half of the brain function, but not babies. So this makes me very excited to be there when life starts and to help the baby, start his or her life. And also I feel that the feeling of joy in a mother's eyes when you save her baby's life, Nothing comes close to seeing that. All the 15 years of doing my medical school, my fellowship, being an attending, everything is worth that one moment when you see this expression in the mother's eyes, when you hand her back a baby who is crying, who is pink. Every moment of this makes life worth it.
Wow. Wow. So we've got the intersection of medicine, neonatology and babies, the fact that you were a mountaineer. I mean, we've just got such a rich intersection of such interesting areas. So, and we'll probably bounce around from the different areas of interest. But let's focus for a moment on your mountaineer experience. And as I was listening to your talks, and reading your biographical material, I saw that you've made this extraordinary observation that climbing at high altitudes, you say, has similarities to what a child experiences in the womb. So walk us through that connection and what drew you to make this comparison.
Absolutely. I love mountaineering. I love the Himalayas in particular, and also every mountain, just because your ego is completely shattered when you are in the presence of these mountains. It's like these mountains are looking at you and laughing and saying, if you think you're important, we don't even know you exist. And so it goes. And I feel that the real self, the real creativity comes out when the ego is dissolved. That said, it is so exciting when you ascend up on a mountain, because as we go up, especially high altitude mountains like Mount Everest and almost every other mountain in the Himalayas. So as we climb up on the mountain, the oxygen level goes down. It's actually the atmospheric pressure which goes down, and therefore the available oxygen to the human body. And the interesting thing is this. For example, when we are at Camp 4 on Mount Everest at 23,000 feet, the ambient oxygen that we are able to take in is very similar to that of a fetus. A fetus is extremely efficient inside the womb. And the hemoglobin is very special in the fetus. It is called fetal hemoglobin because it attaches to much more oxygen. And as we go up higher and higher, up on a mountain, the hemoglobin starts changing in the sense that this is called a shift to the left, where we come closer to the nature of the fetal hemoglobin. So the blood count increases, the amount of oxygen that we are able to grab onto tries to increase. So at Camp 4 on Everest, you are almost faced exactly with the similar conditions to that of a fetus in the womb.
I see.
Which is fascinating because some of the first studies on fetal hemoglobin were actually done on the blood of mountaineers. So it's very fascinating. And that is my excuse for being a neonatologist in the New York, New Jersey area, and also for climbing mountains.
That's so cool. That's so cool. So now in one of your TED Talks, you described witnessing monks walking barefoot on glaciers in sub-zero temperature during your Himalaya expeditions. That's fascinating. As a medical doctor, how do you reconcile what you were seeing with your scientific training? I mean, what's the moment you realize that there's more to the science of meditation than we give credit to? And how do you think these monks accomplished what they accomplished?
Absolutely. That's a great question. I was doing this hike, completely isolated, solo hike at very high altitude in the Indian Himalayas, sub-zero temperatures, 6 layers of clothes, and I am shivering even with these 6 layers. And then
Oh,
I
wow.
see this group of monks just looking so happy, smiling, chanting, dancing their way up the mountain, not wearing anything except a loincloth. That's it, no shoes, no slippers, no sandals. And I'm looking and I'm thinking, this is absolutely not making sense. I'm a medical doctor and this cannot happen. That's the reason I even stopped them and examined them to look at their feet, look at their capillary refill, look at their oxygen saturations. Everything was fine. And that's when I realized, wow, they have incredible mind and breath control, and a lot of it is able to change their metabolism. this actually stimulated me to start a research project, initially in the Himalayas, to look at high altitude illness, to see if pranayam, the yogic breathing practice, the breath work, could prevent it or attenuate it. And then we took it even further. I thought, wow, if this is so effective, which it looked like it was in the high mountains, there are only so many people who are going to climb Everest. So let's bring it back to New York City, and let us bring this back to New Jersey. And this actually was the start of a lovely meditation research project, which I and my team, it's never a one person. It's, the way it needs a village to put this together. So my team is absolutely incredible, and, a lot of gratitude to my team. I was the principal investigator and the project leader on it, and still am. So yes, so we got it back down from the Himalayas to the cities in the United States. But yes, it's so fascinating to know how much we don't know in the realm of science. But this is where research exists. This is where double-blind controlled studies
So,
exist to help us make our understanding better.
so Ron, this is your evidence-based mindfulness curriculum that you brought back, because clearly it was the mindfulness of these monks on the Himalayas and their meditation expertise that allowed them to walk barefoot on this mountain. Is that right?
Absolutely. The pranayam, the breathing practice, and the mindfulness curriculum, absolutely. And like you were saying, David, it is so much more needed in the cities with this hubbub, this stress that we face. So that's the whole reason the idea came to bring it up from the high altitude to zero altitude. Probably the highest altitude in New York is the Empire State Building or the World Trade Center.
Right.
So we reach it from the top of the building. So relatively high altitude, but not as much as in the Himalayas.
All right, so sticking with the Himalayas for a minute. So I understand that you isolated yourself in a cave in the Himalayas for 10 days in complete darkness and meditation. So I assume that's a little bit more than the meditation practice you brought back to New York City. But so you said some of the scariest things in that situation and on Earth are your own thoughts when they come in these moments. Talk to us a little bit about these moments in the cave and what you discovered about yourself, and what what can you say about understanding and acceptance of the self?
Yes, when I lived in this cave, I first thought that I would be scared of the wild animals. There were bears around, there were other wild animals around over there. Having said that, the scariest thing was my own thoughts. When you go deep into meditation in this dark cave up in the high mountains, these thoughts start coming up from the deepest recesses of your mind, and you can run away from scary animals. You can hopefully run away from scary people if you want to. It is very difficult to run away from yourself. And that's when I started realizing that, yes, as these thoughts are coming up, one has to accept them, and one has to be very non judgmental in the sense that the mind needs to be like a movie screen. There's floods portrayed on the screen, there is fire on the screen, and then the movie is done and the screen is still white, the screen is still pristine. And that's the philosophy. So self-acceptance was the greatest thing that I learned out there. And self-love. We talk so much about love and compassion. I feel that it needs to begin with self love and self compassion first.
Mm.
If we are not full of the energy of love, there is no way that it can overflow to other people, and we will have not much to give. So, I believe that the greatest change that we can make in the world is to change ourselves and fill ourselves up with the medicine of love. And that's the biggest lesson I learned up in the high mountains in that cave.
Oh, Nitin, that's incredible. It's energetic, right? And it's like, how do we nurture ourselves is a reflection of how we relate with everyone in the world, how we love ourselves. Thank you so much. Your compassion is so wide, and you shared a story about your work also with COVID-19 and the pandemic and the frontline workers with mindfulness, with these practices. So there you were, 10 days in that cave, and now you brought it down to really hard reality, hard challenges in the world. And can you share? I know you were given an award, the Pandemic Hero by NASA and by the New Jersey Mayor's Office, etc. Share a little bit about how you took the experiences you had in the mountains and in the cave and brought them into these really challenging environments.
Absolutely. It was very scary being on the front lines during COVID.
Yeah.
Also, because my parents were visiting me from India and then COVID hit and all flights got cancelled. So they couldn't go back, which in a way I was very grateful for because I would have wanted my mom and dad with me rather than being alone in a country very far away. But it was a time of great uncertainty. The time that I was really, really affected and broke down into tears was when I saw the bodies being loaded onto the freezer trucks in front of my hospital in Brooklyn. There were so many, there was no place to bury them or burn them. They were just like stacked. So it was a very difficult time. In that, I think we needed the courage, especially with little babies, moms with COVID and delivering these tiny babies in full PPE protective equipment and being there and helping them. So it was a tough time, mainly because of the uncertainty, because science was still struggling at that time to find out the exact nature of what we were dealing with.
Right.
And this is where we were able to conduct a bunch of mindfulness sessions. My dad was here, and we used that opportunity to come on Zoom and with the scientists at NASA, as well as with the healthcare workers, to be able to conduct pranayam sessions on Zoom, meditation sessions on Zoom, so that this would give us some courage. But Jody, the greatest thing was just not the personal efforts that we made. The greatest thing I feel was how the community came together to help all of us. We desperately needed N95 masks, and I reached
Mm.
out with a little bit of my social media outreach to ask for help. I said, please help us. We desperately need this. And you have no idea how people came together.
Mm.
We got these boxes and boxes of masks at that time delivered to my home, delivered to my hospital. Those who didn't have access to this mask, they said, can we just come in PPE and put flowers on your in the emergency department in the neonatal unit so that it makes you happy to look at them? I said, please, yes, absolutely. So there were people coming in and delivering flowers to us at the hospital, these beautiful flowers.
Wow.
And even cooler was that my friends in tech, they offered to manufacture ventilator splitters, ventilator components, so that we would be helped technologically. And they gave us so many of this equipment that we were able to reach out to hospitals in Connecticut, in New Jersey, and help them
Wow.
out as well. So it was not just an individual effort. I love it. This is the beauty of existing, of being
Mm.
human, and I guess being a sentient being,
Mm.
is that the love and compassion always is there. And when you need it, there are always loving people, I feel, who come to
Yes.
help you. So this was the
Yes.
greatest lesson I learned from COVID is these beautiful, loving connections, which are as important as technology.
It was such an isolated time. My dad died of COVID in the hospital in May. In May, he was 80. He was 80 something, like
I,
83.
I'm
He
so
died in
sorry
the
to hear
hospital,
that.
and the isolation, I just remember it. And to your point about the love, the staff the hospital staff were so heroic, and they would Zoom with us and bring the iPad into his room. And they were so, you could feel the care and the love, and it really is, one of the major things that got us through. So I can really relate to what you're saying.
Oh my God, David, I'm so sorry to hear
Oh,
about your
thank
dad
you.
because I
Thank
know
you.
this can never be easy. And you are right about the iPad, and you are so right about how everybody came together. Also, because we had this tiny little baby born premature, very premature, so not expected to live even 24 hours, and the mom couldn't even see this baby. And that's when, I was able to make a phone call and talk to the mom and say, you can't see your baby because you have full-blown COVID, but how can we make this better for you? And that's when she said, if you could read out to the little baby all the stories I read to her when she was in my womb, all the poetry, all the prose, I can give you the list of everything that I read, And we had this 24/7 chaplain at my hospital who was willing. So we made a note of everything that the mom did for the baby. And as this baby was struggling for her life in the isolation room in the neonatal intensive care unit, we had this incredible chaplain. She sat and read to the baby, sang to the baby, recited poetry to the baby. And you won't believe this. 24 hours later, the baby was still alive. 48 hours later was still alive. And 2 weeks later, which was at that time the isolation period ending, the mom could actually be with her baby. And this little girl is now 5 years old.
Beautiful. That's
And
beautiful.
it's of course not just love and compassion, it's also technology. But I feel that these are all cogs in the wheel, and every little bit of staying strong helped to keep this baby alive. So as you said, David, it's so heartening to see how people came together through love and courage, even in the most trying of times.
And the lack of that, that was so difficult for all of us. That was baby no Naomi that you described, correct? Right?
Actually, that was an
Oh,
even different baby
that was
because,
even a different baby.
yeah,
Okay.
Naomi is 16 years old now, and
Oh
this
my
one was
goodness. All
born
right. Well,
during
tell us, why
COVID.
don't you build on that? Tell us a little bit about baby Naomi, but then try to connect up the experience with baby Naomi with your role as a scientist, and as a scientist and a physician, how do you, what do you have to say about the role of these much more sort of intangible kinds of qualities and mystical kind of qualities that we're talking about?
Absolutely. Naomi was born quite premature, and when she was born, her mom's heart also stopped, and the mom required resuscitation at the time of Naomi's birth, and so did the little baby. They were both struggling for their life, and this was one of the greatest test of times for us, test of courage, where Naomi's dad, who was instrumental at that time in keeping his courage, came to visit regularly his wife, of course, as well as his little daughter. And every one of the staff I could feel were showering their love, showering their courage on these two people, this mother and the baby struggling for their lives. Of course, there's a lot of technology involved in saving their lives, but also the immense love that the dad had, to spend hours and hours every day with initially his wife and then with the little one. And I feel that it is a lot of human touch, a lot of love and compassion, which was also involved in eventually healing both of them. So Naomi's mom ultimately became well, and she was able to come to the neonatal unit and hold her little daughter, just cuddle her, just hold her close to her heart. And as I had mentioned, even Naomi had been struggling for her life because her heart took over a minute, I think, to start beating. She required full chest compressions, everything. But eventually, Naomi also slowly started recovering. And then the time came that both Naomi's mom and dad had to be out at work because they had other children and they needed to earn money for the family. And that's when our baby cuddlers come in. And Naomi was among the first little babies to be a part of the baby cuddler program, where we had volunteer cuddlers come in. These were people who were thoroughly vetted, of course, and they were introduced to the parents as these will be the people holding your baby when you can't hold your baby, and with, of course, the parents' full permission. And oh my goodness, these cuddlers were so dedicated. They would just come in and just cuddle and play with these tiny premature babies, give them the human touch. And what is incredible is that there is very strong evidence from my alma mater at Brown, and also a couple of very large neonatal units, which find that these babies, which are cuddled with the human touch, with love and with compassion, they actually have a much shorter stay in the neonatal unit, far lesser complications, and they go on even as teenagers to be far better balanced individuals than the non-cuddled ones. So it's absolutely incredible how much this baby cuddler program achieved. And again, this also drove home the message that it's not just technology, which is extremely important, but also love, kindness, and compassion, which is so responsible for us in our healing journey. So this was our experience with baby Naomi, and also the institution of the baby cuddler program at our hospital.
Baby cuddler program. I want to join that program. Oh my goodness. It sounds so amazing. What can you tell us then about the human connection and consciousness, and why does touching like this, like, is it a energy transfer? What is the healing property that would help a newborn child who's on the edge of life and death, so help it survive?
Yes, it's, as a scientist and as a doctor, it's so important to be able to translate this as much as possible into tangible scientific terms. And this is always the greatest challenge we have in medicine, is there is so much we know, but there is also so much that we do not know.
Mm.
Having said that, the human touch is very, very powerful. It doesn't even have to be restricted to humans. I think it transcends species, but the power of touch is usually very, very healing, as long as it is done with a higher intention of creating good and of spreading good.
Mm.
So I feel that the touch plays a major role in this, to such an extent that even now, even after a cesarean section at the hospitals that I work in, we have instituted a policy where if the mom wishes to, even right after the operation, if she feels able to do it, if the baby is doing okay, she actually holds the baby and there is skin to skin contact, even if it is a freshly operated mother and a freshly born baby. And that's what is so incredible. And there is a lot of evidence which shows that this helps. Also, at a deeper level, this phenomenon is actually called neural Wi-Fi, which is an actual scientific term, is so
Wow.
so if you have love, if you have compassion, and if it has to begin, as we mentioned, with self-love and self-compassion, if it is able to radiate out, this doesn't even apply only to babies, but also to adults around us. The mirror neurons in the people around us start mirroring this, and even without, I would say, the arrogant intention to say, I am going to change the world. As we mentioned, the only person we need to change is ourselves through self-love and compassion. But the mirror neurons start mirroring this love and compassion, and even without talking, even just being present with love, holding
Wow.
the space with love, the other person perceives this. And so this is the greatest science that I can try and bring to this, which is always, again, neuroscience is so fascinating. We know less than 2% of how the human brain works and how everything works within the human body, honestly. And it is so beautiful to experience this at first hand as a neonatologist, as a baby doctor, when we see the power of love in saving little babies' lives.
Oh,
That's beautiful. That's really
gorgeous.
beautiful. So Nitin, I want to go to the story about the mountain dog. Now, do I have this right? He came to meditate beside you, share his food, and eventually offered his back as a pillow to you. Do I have that right? And
So,
and if so,
uh,
and if so, tell us a little bit about that story. And what does this story tell us about consciousness beyond the human, beyond the human condition? What do you think? What do you think that story tells us?
yes. After the year that I was in the cave, those 10 days, the next year I went again into the Himalayas. So, as if isolating myself for these 10 days wasn't enough, I thought, let me go live under a tree up at high altitude. So, no tent, no sleeping bag, just living between the roots of the tree. It was quite near the cave, actually. And there was this beautiful hot spring flowing through. And it was so beautiful to get up at 5 a.m. in the morning, walk to this hot spring, just be immersed in this lovely hot water and see the sunrise over the Himalayas and everything bathed in gold. I was thinking this is the most glorious bathtub
Mm.
in the
Mm.
world. And so, as I was meditating under this tree, I started to get really scared because these large Himalayan bears started coming nearer, and they
Oh,
are bigger than the grizzlies. So, a
Wow.
Himalayan bear is among the largest bears in the world. And I
oh.
thought, oh my God, this is going to be ridiculous because I go in there to search for enlightenment and I will end up being eaten up by a bear and it will make
Dessert.
it will be a nice dessert, or yeah, it wouldn't even be a full meal because I'm not like giant and heavily built, so it would probably be dessert. I like that, yes. And and it wouldn't even it would make it to some tabloid in Brooklyn or in New York to say stupid New York doctor goes and gets eaten up by a bear in the Himalayas.
While
So
meditating. Oh my
while
God.
meditating. So as I was getting scared, I used to light a fire and sit and meditate by that fire in the night. And the second night that I was there, I heard this growling next to me, and I see this huge mountain dog standing next to me as I was there at night under the tree. I was scared, honestly, because these dogs are closer to the wolf family, the lupus family, than the canis family, than the domestic dog family. But I don't know how I mustered the courage to put my arm around him, and I just took a deep breath, and I could actually feel him surrender, and he stayed with me for the 10 days that I was under the
Wow.
tree. He did
Mm.
get me dead rats and mice to share his meal with me, but which I politely refused. And the incredible thing was that, as you were mentioning, as I was sleeping at night, he used to just come and came close enough to my head that I could use him as a pillow, which I actually did. This was a great lesson to me that, love, compassion, and just being there for others, it does not even have to be restricted to humans. It transcends species, I feel, and goes on to all living beings. At the end of my 10 days, since he was a mountain dog, he could not come down to low altitude. Their metabolism is for the mountains. We gave each other a look of immense love and gratitude, and we just parted ways. But this was such a great lesson to me that, if the energy is there, if you have love, if you have compassion, I believe that the universe will find a way, as long as it is unselfish love, the universe will find a way to turn around and without your ever asking for it, pour everything that is beautiful and positive right back into you, without your ever demanding that give me this from the universe. So
Mm.
that was a very, very great lesson to live by up in the high mountains.
That's a beautiful story. Well, toward the beginning of the interview, you mentioned the ego in passing. And Jody and I always ask our guests for their perspective, from whatever perspective they come from, scientists and meditators and yogis and religious figures and all different sort of perspectives on the ego. So from your perspective as a mountaineer, as a physician, as a neonatologist, and a meditator, what is the ego and why is it important to you and to your personal and your professional life?
The best way that I can illustrate this is with an example. So if I feel that I am having a very bad day, all I do is go to the neonatal unit, look into the incubator and see this tiny little baby. The moment they turn 5 or 6 weeks, even if they have IV lines running through them, they will still smile at you for the most part. And I feel that this is because they're completely unconditioned. They did not read those fat 5,000-page neonatology textbooks that read at Brown University while studying for my fellowship in newborn medicine to realize that they could have all these complications and they might not even survive the next day. So I feel that they are able to do this through their complete lack of conditioning. So I feel that ego is necessary where we need conditioning to live in the outside world. Of course, we need conditioning to interact with people. We will be eaten up alive otherwise, especially in New York, if we don't have a little bit of conditioning to deal with people. Having said that, I think it is so important for us to realize that at heart we are loving, we are compassionate. So all that we have as an external self is just our conditioning. And it is so important when we really come down to the crunch in our deepest heart to heart interaction with people. We need to dissolve this conditioning to be able to be open and receptive to understand where the other person is coming from. So for me, the ego is essentially our conditioning, which enables us to interact with the world outside and is necessary to some extent, as long as we know that it is a part of our journey, but it is not our destination. Because the ultimate destination, it is a circular journey. We go outside to look for happiness, but ultimately it is inside us. So this whole journey of a full circle is coming back into us, and to realize that all this conditioning was necessary, but that beyond this conditioning, in our heart, in our mind, the love and compassion are the constant and steadiest energy that makes us function. So this is what I have learned, and this is my concept of ego and conditioning.
Oh my goodness, it's so beautiful. Yeah, it's so touching and so true. And thank you, thank you. Boy, Nathan, you've been, written up in the New York Times, Rolling Stones, NPR. You've spoken at the National Institute of Health. You've given multiple TED Talks, and we invite our audience to listen to some of your talks. Can you tell us about integrating ancient wisdom into the science that you do, just like the beautiful conversation we've just had? And is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience? Any practice, any advice, any thoughts today?
Absolutely. And this is so interesting because we are the ones who build umbrellas between ancient and modern and build these walls which often separate the two. And it is one beautiful universal concept. And I absolutely love that. So my dad and I ended up writing a book on pranayam, breathwork, the ancient practice of breathing. So my dad, as a practitioner, would draw upon several decades of his experience, but I try and bring the medical science behind it out there. But going to translate ancient wisdom into modern medicine, we are actually in the process of writing a paper, me, my medical students, my pre-med students, and my resident doctors, comparing the breath work that we do, the pranayam, to actual ventilator breaths that we use to save lives, and
Amazing.
also to modern. So everything that we have done in modern medicine and in modern life, I believe is an iteration of what we already knew a long time ago. But now we are coming down to a much greater realization about how those ancient wisdom practices are still relevant in our everyday life. And on that note, it is exciting because I've started a channel called Mindful Moments with Baby Doc Ron, and it's again about the babies. So I would tell a baby story and then maybe a lesson that we learn from it, maybe a little meditation that we actually do on it, and then coming back in a circle about what lesson we learned. So this is on YouTube, and it's in the channel is started, but I have to make it a lot better, and I am still working on that. But those are the things that I feel through my experience I am able to bring about uh, in everyday life, in modern life. And it also draws upon the meditation project that we have started in our neonatal intensive care unit. Jody and David, you won't believe it. We made everybody meditate, and even 8 minutes of meditation once a week. And we did EEG brainwave studies before and after. 8 minutes once a week. And already the chaotic brainwaves were starting to level out and go into peace and calm. So it's so beautiful to bring science into these ancient practices and techniques and into this ancient wisdom.
So when you speak of meditation, I'm curious, is it like a TM where you focus on a sound? Is it a mantra where you say a mantra? Is it just following your breath to the bottom and pausing? And especially in this particular study, what kind of simple practice did you use?
Absolutely. Since it was a double-blinded controlled study and it had to be approved by the IRB, the Institutional Review Board of the hospitals, it had to be completely non-denominational meditation. And it was guided meditation, which it was walked through. And there are different types of meditation. There's meditation for sleep, there is meditation for being active. So we had to standardize and cycle through 3 different types of meditations and cycle them through every week so that everything was equal. As I was mentioning, we wanted to make this as scientific as possible. And the results were analyzed by an industrial psychologist who had no idea of what was happening at the actual user end. So as much as possible, we tried to make it as pure and scientific. There were times I led the guided meditation and the times that I could not lead it. We had these incredible pre-medical and med students and residents. These were, I call them my mindfulness ambassadors. So we trained them to lead the meditations because there are times I'm on working 24 straight hours and then I would be too exhausted to lead the study. So these little angels came in and did it for me at that time. So again, it takes a village. This is never an individual effort. And so these are the meditations that we used, guided meditations. And again, 8 minutes once a week. And already it was starting to have beautiful, beautiful results. So the study is still ongoing. And this is what makes me so excited. Just the immense power of mindfulness, of love, compassion in, I guess, in changing the world, and I do not even mention this in a hyperbolic sense.
Well,
Wow.
Nitin,
Okay.
yeah, thank you very, very much. This was wonderful, and we covered a lot of topics and a lot of really fascinating things related to science and spirituality and mysticism, which is really really the goal of the program. So, thank you so much for the conversation. We really appreciate it.
You're
Thank
most
you.
welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jody and David, and thank you for inviting me to be here.
This episode was brought to life by Ka Pathogenics, offering 100% plant-based supplements featuring Kana, a South African plant that's clinically proven to reduce stress, lift mood, and improve focus, helping you feel more alive, energized, and connected while also supporting your immune and nervous systems. Kana is safe, legal, non-addictive, and life-changing. Try Kakana Chooser tincture to feel calm and alive from head to heart. Go to ohmyka.com and get 10% off with code RealityMaybe at checkout. That's ohmyka.com.
Exploring Reality Maybe is written, produced, fact-checked, and edited by Jody R. Weiss and David Schwartz. Research support is provided by Semicolon Connects. Music produced by Nextbox. Visit our website at exploringrealitymaybe.org to find show notes, transcripts, bios, and to learn more. If you like the show, please visit our website to donate.